Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Depot Dive. I am Ross McCorkle, and above me here on the screen, as always, is Joe Clark. And we're coming at you from the Steelers bye week. Steelers just coming off a win in Ireland in the NFL's first ever regular season game there against the Minnesota Vikings. And the score was 24-21, but it felt a lot better than that for most of the game. Joe, before we dive into things, how's your week been? I know you had a little bit of a disappointment yesterday.
Yeah, not a great bye week watching the Red Sox win the first game of the three-game wild card series and then drop the next two in rather devastating fashion. So it's been a rough last 2 days, but um weekend ahead. So
Fair enough. I think most people listening to this would be Pirates fans and would probably kill to be in the wild card play-in. So can't complain too much there, but I still feel your pain. All right, well, we're going to dive into week 4 and just recap some of that win over the Vikings. Kind of a big, I don't know, some people seem to be looking at it as a turning point of sorts because there was a lot of positive things for the Steelers in this game, and the Vikings are a good opponent. A lot of people, I think, both of us included, I believe, had them losing this game. And so coming out with a win is a big deal. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about some of the coordinator and position coaches' media availabilities from the bye week, as they do every year. Get to hear from those guys. That's really the only time of the year you get to hear from them. And then we're going to look at some of the injuries and maybe some other bye week type topics before getting into a listener question. Joe, where do you want to start in this win? I thought that, up until the final 10 minutes of the game, it was 24-6. Is that right? 24-6.
yep.
And, all of a sudden, it was a one score game right there at the very end with the Vikings having a chance to win. Where do you want to start here?
Yeah, I mean, as the Steelers are one to do, that's just that's Pittsburgh Steelers football. You can never escape without having heart palpitations in the end of the fourth quarter. But I do think, it's the first win of the season that you really feel good about coming out of. The run game looked good. The defense was a lot better. They forced turnovers. They got after the quarterback. They didn't allow too much on the ground. There are still some issues. There's still some lapses for sure. But, the Jets game, you came out with some concerns. The Patriots game, you came out with some concerns. So I think the concerns after this game are a lot less, and the Vikings are a good football team, even with Carson Wentz at quarterback. So definitely feeling a lot better about the state of this team and them going forward after getting that win. I mean, after the Patriots game, it would kind of seemed as if you had two kind of fluky wins on your resume. And I think that was, outside of, as you said, the last 10 minutes where things kind of went haywire, that was a pretty good start to finish football game. And I mean, the defense did what they had to do on the last drive to not let Minnesota climb back into field goal range. Um, you got to be happy with what DK Metcalf did. Jalen Warren didn't play, and I mean, I know before the game that was kind of like, oh shit, Jalen Warren's not playing, but Kenneth Gainwell stepped up, played really well. Kaleb Johnson even had a couple of nice runs. He had a 6 yarder and a 9 yarder. So all in all, I think the offense looked a lot better, and the defense did their job and was able to get after the quarterback effectively. So I felt good. I felt good after that win.
Yeah, so did I. But you mentioned a couple of fluky wins. I actually just put together kind of key stat categories and basically did the math. If they're on this pace through 4 games, what's that going to look like through 17? And then I compared it to their last 4 seasons, all seasons where there have been 17 games in the regular season, so 2021 till now. And I just wanted to go through some of these categories real quick and have you guess where they rank first to fifth in some of these categories. Total yards allowed.
Fourth.
They are last by
Okay.
quite a bit,
That's
actually.
yeah, that's not completely surprising. I was trying to rack my brain if maybe there's one year where they got stomped early. I guess the Patriots week 1 game was, I guess, now 6 years ago. That was 2019. So I guess I was kind of thinking of that one.
Yeah, passing yards allowed, rushing yards allowed. Both of those, they are last, which is no big surprise. They're on pace to allow 6,502 yards, which
Jesus.
in a normal season, they're allowing anywhere from like 5,500 to like 6,000 at the very worst, and they're on pace to allow 6,502 right now. Not great. Points against, where would you rank them?
Probably last.
Yeah, yep, and by a good margin once again. 416.5 is what they're on pace to allow. Just last year, they allowed only 347 across the whole season. Now, this does also include the Kaleb Johnson, free touchdown that he gave up. This doesn't only differentiate between defensive points allowed. This is basically all points against. But yeah, the Steelers are on pace to have the most points against since at least 2021, and probably much further back than that, if we're being honest. Over on the offensive side of things, total yards, where do they rank?
Fourth.
They are last.
Wow.
Yeah. 4,479.5 is what they are on pace to have. Just last year, they finished with 5,430. So they are basically 1,000 yards behind their pace last year. And really, all 4 years, they kind of finished in that same ballpark. So they are lagging behind in total yards. As you can imagine, passing yards, rushing yards, much the same there. This is an interesting one. Passing touchdowns.
First.
Yep, and by a ton. Aaron Rodgers is on pace for 34 passing touchdowns, which I don't know if I would have really put that math together in my head. But yeah, he's had a fair amount. He had 4 in that first game, which obviously helps his 4-game pace through 17 games. But the next highest on the list was 2021, which was Ben Roethlisberger with 23. It's probably no surprise that the 2 most touchdowns, passing touchdowns at least, came from future Hall of Famer quarterbacks, and those Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph years, a little bit lower. 2022, they had just 12, which, ouch. Interceptions, that one's not as interesting. Oh, okay, this is the big stat and kind of explains, okay, how the heck are they 3-1 given all of these stats I've just gone through, and they're basically last in all of them except for the passing touchdowns. Turnover differential.
I think they got to be first there.
Yes, indeed. I think they're, +7 right now, I believe, which has them on pace for +29.8 across 17 games, which would be, I didn't look, but probably some kind of record by a good margin. Just last year, they finished the season with +16. In 2021 and 2022, +2 and +4 respectively. So they're way up, and that's kind of explains, why they are 3-1, why they are kind of sitting in a good position in the division, despite the rest of the statistics not looking that great. So I thought that'd be a fun exercise to go through because I was pretty surprised when digging up those numbers. But steering back to the Week 4 recap, I thought on defense in particular, they were able to stop the run. How much of that has to do with Derek Harmon? How much of that has to do with, all right, we have Deshaun Elliott back in the game now, somebody who's, going to be better at communicating on the back end there. I think there's been some miscommunications overall on the back end, and Elliott's somebody who is not afraid to get his nose in the pile there. It's probably all of the above. Defensive line working well. I think the inside linebackers. I think Patrick Queen's finally coming into his own as what the Steelers kind of envisioned he would be when they paid him all that money prior to the 2024 season. And so I think it's a big combination of all of the above, but I wanted to highlight Deshaun Elliott in particular because, man, he even said after the game on, which podcast was he on? He was on Christian Kuntz, right?
Yep.
He said he was nowhere near 100%. And if you look at the Irish jig that he did after his interception, he actually was only jigging with one leg, and that's because he couldn't actually make his knee do the movements necessary to do the jig with the other leg. So that's how not 100% he was, that he couldn't even dance, yet he played 100% of their defensive snaps with 76. He had 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, 2 passes defense, a tackle for a loss, a sack. I can't remember how many tackles overall, but a good amount of tackles. So he had a splashy game, and he's not even 100%. I mean, how big is Deshaun Elliott for this defense, and what else did you like on the defense, Joe?
Oh, I mean, Deshaun Elliott's huge. I think we saw last season, I think he made much more of an impact as a tackler than I think we expected. He was their best tackler on the team. He was able to get downhill, make plays in space. So having him back is huge because the safety duo was not looking too great with him out. Juan Thornhill was what the 2 games without Elliott, one Thornhill was a little iffy. Chuck Clark was iffy. He had a couple drop picks. So I think having Elliott back is huge, kind of strengthens the back end. Defensively, I kind of like some of their blitz packages. I know Alex put one cut up with Herbig with a stunt and the fake stunt. I thought Herbig was great. I think the Steelers are going to find a way to keep Herbig on the field when Alex Highsmith comes back. He's playing like one of the best passers in football. TJ Watt's interception was obviously pretty awesome. Great play. I mean, his hand-eye coordination is ludicrous, and it's one of the reasons why he has been so effective throughout his career. As you said, Patrick Queen, great game. Payton Wilson would be remiss not to talk about the play where he tracked down Jordan Addison, reached over 22 miles per hour. Could have gotten a speeding ticket in some jurisdictions with that hustle. And it's, I mean, the Vikings scored on the drive, but it took a ton of time off the clock that the Vikings could have theoretically had on their last drive that maybe it gives them the time to get into field goal range. So really good play by Payton Wilson there. A game-winning play, really, if you think about it. So, yeah, defensively across the board, I was pretty impressed with the way guys looked. I mean, Justin Jefferson kind of had his way in the first half, but halftime adjustments, I think he only had one catch in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So good job there, kind of limiting what his impact could have been. Obviously, he should have had that one touchdown where he kind of stumbled and fell, but that's just the way the game goes sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, Keanu Benton, too. Got to shout out Keanu Benton, hard on him early in the year. I thought he played far and away his best game of the season, one of the better games of his career, really. He was solid. Harmon was solid. So, yeah, across the board, I thought it was a pretty solid defensive outing for the Steelers.
Yeah, more often than not, you're looking for most of your games to be won by the star players. You're talking about, your Aaron Rodgers, your DK Metcalfs, and the guys you would expect to be the story of the game. But I thought the story of the win over the Vikings was the unheralded or the maligned even Steelers were the ones that really contributed to their win. How much negativity was there surrounding Keanu Benton leading up to this game? How much negativity was there surrounding Payton Wilson leading up to this game? And to a lesser extent, Broderick Jones. I think he had an okay game compared to, I mean, I'm not going to say it was a good game, but he had a pretty okay game considering what he had been the first 3 weeks. So I think the Steelers that most people had kind of written off stepped up in a big way and were a big part of this win. Probably doesn't result in a win if not for some of those guys. So good. I mean, that's the sign of a good team in my eyes. They still have a lot of things to clean up and get better at, but yeah, I mean, I thought that for that reason alone, it was encouraging. Aaron Rodgers talking about his quick release. He was getting rid of the ball in 2.17 seconds. If just comparing to last year, I think Russell Wilson was getting rid of it in, I think it was like 2.9, and Justin Fields was like up near 3. So if you want to point to how these offenses look different from last year to this year, even though Arthur Smith has been the offensive coordinator, you just look at Aaron Rodgers and his quick release. It is, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. The one pass to DK Metcalf, it was kind of a hot route. They sent, I think it was Kaleb Johnson in motion out to wide receiver, and you just see one of the defenders kind of rotate inside, and Aaron Rodgers sees that, snaps the ball, and I mean, as soon as it hit his hands, he's already somehow in his throwing motion to get the ball out to DK Metcalf for, I think it was like a 14-yard gain. That is the kind of impact that Aaron Rodgers can make, and I think he's kind of starting to hit his stride in that regard. Speaking of Metcalf, finally had a wide receiver 1 type of game, probably for the first time all year. That touchdown that he had was ridiculous. I mean, we talked about Payton Wilson's speed. DK Metcalf has it as well. Joe, if we put Metcalf and Payton Wilson and maybe threw Calvin Austin third in there just for fun, who's winning that race?
Probably got to be Calvin, I think, just because he's got more of that sprinter speed. But DK, if DK gets go and DK could catch up, I think that's tough.
Let's say a 60-yard race. 60-yard race, so not a 40-yard dash. A little bit more of a wind-up time here.
I think I'd have to go DK, because when he got moving after that run, he looked, I mean, there was like motion blur on the screen there. He was going crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I think if DK gets the time to wind up, I think DK might win that race. I mean, Calvin Austin is incredibly speedy, but if you give DK that time and he's built like a physical freak, like I think I would give him a slight edge there.
I think Patrick Queen said that Payton is also always chirping at DK Metcalf in practice, kind of chasing him down from behind and kind of talking smack about how slow he is and everything like that. So it seems like there's maybe a little friendly rivalry on the team already, and they are already thinking about this same question that we are now trying to answer. I don't know how much else from this game, especially since we're several days out. I think Steelers Nation obviously showed up big. I look forward to the next game in Ireland. I used to go to at least one Steelers game every single year. Haven't been able to do that since starting working at Steelers Depot. We have a lot of responsibilities during the game, but my next game is going to have to be in Ireland. Whenever that next Ireland game is, I'm going to have to figure that out because that looked like too much fun. I don't know what percent Steelers fans, but it looked like 75% at least. The city was decked out in Steelers stuff. I mean, poor Vikings, and they had to stay over there in Europe for another game this Sunday against the Browns. So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Joe, from Week 4? Or can we move on?
I think the only thing to bring up is just how the Steelers kind of use their jumbo package a lot more. I mean, Spencer Anderson, I think, was out there. I want to say 16, 17 snaps. Darnell Washington led all the tight ends in snaps. I think he had something like 45 around there. So, and that kind of helps spearhead the ground game. I'm intrigued to see how much the Steelers use it going forward. I know Arthur Smith said it was something that game planned all week. They thought they had the advantage. But now they have it on tape, so now it's something that teams can kind of prep for. So maybe it won't be, a thing going forward as much, but I did think that was kind of a key takeaway to kind of jumpstart the ground game even without Jalen Warren in the game.
Yeah, agreed. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end as well. I think our listener question is more or less about the run game. It was very interesting to see, and I mean, I'm not sure how much they're going to do that going forward, but it's in their back pocket. Teams know it now, so it's going to be a little more difficult to pull off, but it's going to be something we see throughout the season, no doubt. Moving into our coach press, like our coach media availability. So I think both coordinators spoke, all the position coaches spoke. Some interesting things to come out of those sessions. Where do you want to start, Joe?
I think the one that kind of got the most traction was Tom Arth. He kind of said Will Howard, he's obviously on IR with a broken finger, but Tom Arth said right now Will Howard's in the best shape he's been in since he's been with the Steelers. Give a lot of praise to the medical staff and the training staff for kind of, not only with Howard's rehab, but kind of getting him in shape and keeping him working and keeping him involved. Aaron Rodgers, Arth said, has kind of been giving him some projects to work on. So with him set to come off IR, or at least eligible to come off IR, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy that comes off, in the next few weeks here. I know Jerry Dulac had reported that he's going to come off IR before Skylar Thompson. So interesting thing to note there. Eddie Faulkner said the Steelers will need Kaleb Johnson down the stretch. He said expects him to just keep getting better and better. Definitely, his best game of the season on Sunday. Really, the first game all year, he's made a positive contribution for the Steelers. He just wasn't involved early in the season. Obviously, the Seattle blunder is what's going to stand out when you think about Kaleb Johnson early in the season. But had some nice runs, was a solid RB2. You kind of saw some of that explosiveness that Arthur Smith talked about after they drafted him. When he kind of got in the open field, he was able to cut, make some guys miss. So if he gets more opportunities, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just continue to become a big contributor. So I think those two were pretty notable comments from position coaches. Pat Meyer had some positive things to say about how Broderick Jones works in practice and his practice habits and how he's kind of developed through 3 years. But obviously, still a lot to work on with Broderick. So there's nothing really huge coming out of the coaches this week, but definitely some interesting little takeaways.
Yeah, I wanted to, on Broderick Jones, I think it was kind of telling to me the way that Pat Meyer approached that whole thing, because he's like, he's young. Well, he's not young. He's in his third year. He really needs to contribute. But they always want to point to the fact that this guy's young, and it's like, okay, but you literally have to make your fifth-year option decision on him in like a few months from now. So I don't think we can really be saying he's young. Yeah, okay, maybe it's like he's on the left side for the first time, so there is somewhat of an adjustment. But you'd hope it's not a full reset. This guy's started many games now in the NFL, so I thought that was kind of telling. But And just the fact that he said when he has a good week of practice, he usually plays good. So what does that mean? He never practices good because he never plays good. So what are we talking about? Like, I don't know. The praise that he had for Broderick Jones to me was like just kind of what you have to say as the coach. But it was more reading between the lines that made me scratch my head a little bit and was like, I don't really think that they have a very high opinion of this guy based on what he's saying. So I thought that was interesting. Kaleb Johnson, I get that they probably plan on him having a larger role down the stretch, but how's that going to happen, especially now that you have Kenneth Gainwell proving that he can run for 99 yards? They like Jalen Warren. I mean, yeah, he's a good insurance policy, but is he anything more than an insurance policy at this point? I thought in the Vikings game, the biggest moment, yes, he had a few good runs, but the most unfortunate moment for him was dropping that pass. You really want to see him, if he's not going to be a good pass protector, which it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case this year. I'm not saying he can't develop, but this year, probably not going to trust him in that role protecting Aaron Rodgers. You at least need to have him be able to catch passes on passing downs. Otherwise, he's just a 0 or maybe even a negative on passing downs. And I think, that drop is just another check on the, probably not going to be a third down contributor anytime soon, which totally limits the ways they can use him. I don't know how they're going to get him on the field. They might have every intention to, but how is that even going to happen? I don't really even know if that's a question or if you have an answer to that, Joe, but feel free to chime in.
No, I mean, I kind of agree that it's going to be extremely difficult this year. I think the only thing is if you get more attrition, guys who are down the stretch. I mean, after this bye, it's what? They've played 4 games. It's 13 straight games. I mean, that's going to be a lot of hits on Jalen Warren, a lot of hits on Kenneth Gainwell. So maybe you have him mix in a little bit more. But as you said, you can't rely on him on third downs at all. He's not a good pass protector. He had the drop. He wasn't really a good receiver in college either. I mean, last year he had 22 catches. But I think before last year, he only had 7 throughout his career at Iowa. So he was never really a guy that was relied upon. And those 22 catches last year is because he was playing like a ton because I was legitimately their only source of offense for the majority of the season. So I don't really see him being a huge contributor, but I do think they'll try to mix him in on early downs, especially as the season wears on, and just see what you can get out of him, just to give some of those guys a break in Gainwell and Warren. But yeah, I mean, more or less, I think he is kind of just an insurance policy for this year. If you're talking about him having a bigger role, I mean, down the line, who knows, that could change. But yeah, definitely not the contributions expected so far, and at least in the future from Johnson that it kind of seemed when they drafted him. And there's a lot of positive buzz early in training camp and in mini camp, and it just hasn't really translated. But I think he's going to get some opportunities, but they're going to be very limited.
Yeah, and it at least makes me wonder, like, is that the kind of guy you need to be drafting in the 3rd round? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a bad pick yet. Obviously, that's jumping the gun, but it does make you wonder. Roman Wilson, that was the other one from Zach Azzani there, basically saying, he's going to get an opportunity at some point, needs to be ready when that opportunity comes. They're going to need him, et cetera, et cetera. This is all stuff he said in the preseason or OTAs or whatever the last time Azzani spoke, maybe training camp. So, I mean, gosh, if it's not this week, then when, I guess, with Roman Wilson. Calvin Austin this week, meaning week 6, so next week. Calvin Austin the third, we're going to talk about him a little bit here in the injury section, but sounds like, maybe he is going to be out for 1 game at least. Maybe not. I guess we don't have a ton of clarity on that, but I would think, probably the fact that he had to go to the hospital and had a sling on after the game and rode in an ambulance, I mean, you would think that means at least a game. So maybe Roman Wilson's opportunity comes in week 6. If not, then, man, he's kind of in the same boat as Kaleb Johnson. Is he just an insurance policy? And to an extent, I think we expected this, right? I mean, maybe not, because I think you had Roman Wilson. Did you have him above? Did you have him as your number 2 receiver?
Robert Woods is my number 2 receiver.
Ooh. Well, we can't get them all. That's funny. Hey, Robert Woods is out there as a free agent still. If the Steelers end up needing to sign somebody, he might be the leader in the clubhouse. At least he knows.
He's only got one less catch than Roman Wilson so far.
That's right. He could come in and take over that wide receiver 3 spot pretty quickly. So, anyhow, yeah, Roman, I don't know. I want to see him personally, but I don't think it's a huge surprise. Arthur Smith has never really had a wide receiver 3 that does a ton in any of his offenses. He's more of a fullback, extra tight end kind of guy, and we're seeing that. So not a huge surprise, but it does kind of suck. You want to see Roman Wilson. He had all that preseason buzz. You really want to see what he can do, and it might just kind of be a wash. Another season waiting in the wings. So, all right, we'll move on to the injury section. And unfortunately, there's quite a bit to talk about here because there were, as Mike Tomlin put it, they were leaking at the end of the game. And I think that was kind of a reflection of how that comeback happened. The secondary was beat up. You already had Joey Porter Jr. out. Jalen Ramsey was in and out of the game and ultimately out of the game with a hamstring. Brandon Echols exited the game. Was it briefly or?
He had cramps, and I don't think he returned after he cramped up.
And you never know with that because they called Joey Porter Jr.'s hamstring just tightness, and then now it's like 3-4 games later, and he's still not back on the field. So, I mean, hopefully it was just cramps, but you never know with like, I don't even know where the cramping was. If the cramping was in his hamstring, that's not great. Same with calf. That stuff can also be not great sometimes. So maybe it was just fatigue type of injury that hopefully he's just back. But Joe, what is the latest on? Let's stick with the defense for right now. What's the latest on some of these guys, and maybe Alex Highsmith included since he's been out?
Ray Fittipaldo was on 93.7 The Fan today. He said that he expects both Joey Porter Jr. and Alex Highsmith to return after the bye, which is good news because he also said Ramsey's probably not going to be back by week 6. Jalen Ramsey left the game against the Vikings with, I believe, was a hamstring. He kind of pulled up lame in coverage, left the game, tried to come back, left the game again. So he's probably going to miss some time. I think Tomlin called it a hamstring after the game. So if you get Porter back, then you at least, you're not having a piecemeal secondary. You'll have Porter, you'll have Darius, you'll have Brandon Echols as an option. Both Ramsey out. I think you wrote about this too. There's a possibility that Beanie Bishop could get elevated to serve a role in the slot, and then Highsmith as well. It will be back, and then I think it's going to be really interesting with Highsmith coming back because he's really good. He got a lot of pressures when he was playing earlier this season, but Nick Herbig's been really good. So are you going to go with 3 outside linebackers on the field more often? I think they should. Are they going to work Highsmith back slowly? Maybe have him in a 3rd outside linebacker? I can't personally see that happening, but if they want to work him back slowly just because of how well Herbig's been playing, it could certainly be effective, but I do think they're going to try to find a way to, I think it was that Bronco package that they had a little bit earlier this year. They worked out at times last season as well. I could definitely see them doing that more often. Denzel Martin, I think, talked about the possibility of that as well this week. So definitely something to look for. And I think that could really make the Steelers pass rush a lot more dangerous, having just 3 talented guys off the edge, but you can line them up kind of wherever to try to kind of wreak havoc on the quarterback. So going to be interesting to see how things work, but good news that Highsmith is coming back. He's been out since week 2, I believe, with a ankle injury. Yep. So, yeah, good to have him back. Missed him the last 2 games.
Yeah, I'm a big Alex Highsmith fan, but unfortunately, the story of his career is becoming injuries. And yeah, I mean, if you have a guy like Nick Herbig, who's, I think we've talked about it in recent weeks, his pace for like a full 17-game season is basically all pro type of numbers. It's hard to justify keeping him off the field. I think Terrell Austin said they're not going to limit Herbig in any kind of way. What does that mean? Does that mean that he is going to be the, starter opposite Watt, or is it going to be a 50-50 rotation between Herbig and Highsmith? I don't know. I kind of probably see Highsmith retaining that role, but yeah, I mean, the 3 outside linebacker package, the Bronco package, every time they've tried to use that in recent years, somebody's gotten hurt. So, this might be the first time that they actually get to use it. And does that start to, kickstart somebody like TJ Watt's production? Because you're not really able to, good luck triple teaming Watt when you got Herbig and Highsmith along the defensive line rushing as well. That seems like a win for the Steelers if they want to triple team Watt in that situation. So, yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to talk about on the defensive side. On the offense, Calvin Austin III, this is an interesting one. Like we said, he ended up in an ambulance. He was in a sling, leaving the stadium there at Croke Park. Ended up at the hospital where he later tweeted that he's all good or something along those lines. And to me, I was like, okay, does that mean he's all good as in, hey, like, I'm not going to die because I'm at the hospital? Like, or was it an all good as in, I'm going to be back this next week? That part was unclear at first. Then, of course, you had the Jerry Dulac report saying he was going to be out, expected to miss at least several weeks, along with Jalen Ramsey expected to be out at least several weeks. Seems like that might not be correct. We'll see. But I think Mike DeFabo of The Athletic reported that Calvin Austin III had x-rays after the game that came back negative. Negative, of course, meaning no break, which is a good sign for him. I don't know exactly on what, maybe a clavicle or I don't know, but he had a sling, so you can only assume that might be the case. So a good sign for him. And if it's negative at that point, what are you talking about? Maybe just a contusion, maybe some kind of hematoma type of situation, bone bruise. I don't know, but sometimes that stuff's more pain than anything. And he had the extra bye week, so it wouldn't be like the craziest thing ever if he did play next week, but also, he might miss some time. It doesn't seem like an IR trip is going to happen for him, but we will see. The Steelers didn't need to make any IR moves this week because it's a bye week, and the way the rules work, they only have to miss 4 games. It's not 4 weeks, and so there would be no benefit to putting them on IR now unless they wanted to make corresponding roster moves and get those out of the way. But with everybody kind of on a little mini break, I think what Mike Tomlin said, we're going to give you guys the week off more or less. They had practice, what was it, Tuesday? Or not even practice. Was it practice? It might have just been film review, but they were together on Tuesday. Otherwise, the teams kind of had the week off, so not a surprise that nothing has happened yet. We'll see. Jalen Ramsey's more concerning to me for the time being with that hamstring, because we've seen that already with Joey Porter and others, that a hamstring can end up being 3, 4, 5, 6 games sometimes. So that one is more concerning. Joe, who's most likely to return from IR? There are 3 candidates: Will Howard, Dante Kent, Corey Trice. Who do you see returning? Multiple, maybe.
So we haven't really heard much about Corey Trice's health, so I'm going to rule him out just because there's just kind of been silence there. Dante Kent said he feels great, but I don't think the Steelers are going to look to kind of rush him and activate him back, especially after he missed the entire preseason, as did Will Howard. But the Steelers have been working without an emergency third quarterback since Skylar Thompson was hurt. And as I said earlier, I think Jerry Dulac outlined that Howard is expected to return sooner, with Tom Arth's comments that he's in, the best shape he's been in. I could see Howard getting activated and maybe serving that emergency third quarterback role for the Steelers. Just off those 3 right now, just based off the knowledge that we have, and from what we've seen of them, I think Howard probably makes the most sense. I think the team would prioritize bringing Trice back, but we just don't know what his status is right now, so it's kind of tough to say that he's going to be the first guy back. When Howard, the timeline of the injury, he should be fine right now, and if he's in good shape and he's looking good and he's been around the team, I could see him being the guy that gets activated off, get him back practicing, kind of help his development a little bit.
Fair enough. And the Steelers still have an open spot on their roster with after, what was it, Max Sharping 2 weeks ago went to IR. They still have that spot open. So, presumably they would fill that with a guard. I think we talked about Nate Herbig coming in for a workout in one of the previous episodes, so that's something to watch as well. Are they going to need a receiver? Are they going to need a corner? I think those are probably the 2 most likely. They brought in, 3 safeties the other day? So I guess they're looking at safety as well, because Jalen Ramsey kind of fills multiple roles there. So all of that is worth watching. I don't know, who they're most likely to bring in. I think some of those positions are more likely to be filled off the practice squad via an elevation. Like you already said, Beanie Bishop. I want to remind people that Isaiah Hodgins is on the practice squad as a receiver that could definitely come up. He's a guy who has basically the same number of receptions in his career as a guy like Skoranek or a guy like Scotty Miller. So slightly less, but still has that experience under his belt. So that's a guy. There's other guys on the practice squad they could call up on the offensive line, like Dylan Cook's still there. I think Stephen Jones might still be there. A couple other guys. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they fill that final spot. But I think right now Jalen Ramsey is the biggest kind of worry because it just sucks. Because, I mean, the secondary was kind of the big hope for this defense to be quote-unquote historic, as Mike Tomlin put it, which I think was now aged very poorly. But, I mean, gosh, they might not see that full secondary. I mean, at this point, they might not see it at all because who knows? If Ramsey's out 3, 4, 5 games, yeah, is Slay going to stay healthy? Is Porter going to stay healthy? I don't know. Elliott. So, I mean, at this point, you may not see those guys together. If you do, it's going to be kind of late season, which is when you need them, but also kind of just a bummer overall. So, anything to add, Joe?
No, I think that covers it.
All right, we're going to go into our listener question, and this one, I believe, is from a new caller. Maybe this guy did one other, and actually, I need to get that pulled up here. Okay, here it is. This one is from Joe in Oregon.
Hey, Depot Divers. This is Joe from Oregon. Hey, right before kickoff Sunday morning, I kind of cringed when I heard that Warren was going to be out, and then when I saw Gainwell start, I thought we were going to be doomed. But obviously the running game really clicked, and the only discernible difference that I noticed is we brought in Anderson on a lot of heavy looks, and Washington played in something like 90% of the snaps. If it's really just that simple to get the running game going, why haven't we done it until now? And do you think we'll continue to do this going forward? Thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you for the question, Joe. We appreciate that. And if you want to have your question answered, 412-254-3145. You can call or text that number for a chance to have your question answered on a future episode. Joe wants to know about, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but I didn't want to dive too deep knowing that this was going to be the question. So, they brought in the jumbo package where you've got Darnell Washington on the field. You got Spencer Anderson as an extra tackle on the line. So you basically have 7 offensive linemen up there. At times, you're also motioning guys like Ben Skoranek across the formation as a lead blocker. And so that's kind of like an 8th offensive lineman. And, more or less, they hard committed to the run game in Ireland. And so Joe wants to know, why haven't they done that already? Fair question. Joe?
I think a lot of it has to do with the matchups. If you look at, week 1, the Jets had a really good front 7. Week 2, the Seahawks have a really talented front 7. They maybe could have broken it out a little bit more against the Patriots. Feel like the Vikings are down Blake Cashman, who's on their top linebackers. Their defensive front, they're better. They're down Andrew Van Ginkel. They're kind of a better pass protecting unit than a run protecting unit. And Arthur Smith said going in, they felt they had the advantage against the run. So they really leaned on it and brought in the heavy set. And I do think it is fair to question why they haven't done it more, at least even in maybe not as much as they did in week 4, but in spurts earlier in the season, maybe it's something they could have turned to help bolster the run game. And I'm intrigued to see how much they use it going forward, really, because like I said earlier, now it's on tape. Now it's something that they've showed teams can kind of maybe game plan against it. But at the same time, you're running until somebody stops it. And the Vikings couldn't really stop it. So I'm intrigued to see how this jumbo package works, because I think it was a really good game plan. They schemed up their runs really well. So I was very happy with it. So intrigued to see its usage going forward and if it's something the Steelers will continue to lean on.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was that spoke. Oh, I think it was Spencer Anderson himself. Said against the Patriots, their plan actually was to do that. And whatever, I don't know, the flow of the game, he said some generic like, oh, well, it just kind of didn't end up happening because the game maybe unfolded in a different manner than, I don't really know what that means, because the Steelers are up 14-0. You'd think that'd be the time to hunker down and start running the football. So I'm not exactly sure why they didn't do that. But another thing to keep in mind here, and this is a tweet from our Dave Bryan here at Steelers Depot. One thing to keep in mind this week when it comes to the offense, they have only run 215 plays so far, and 6 of those were kneel downs. Only 110 pass attempts as well. That's an extremely low average for 4 games. That's obviously led to fewer targets than normal. He's talking about the passing game here, but the same applies to the run game. They just haven't run that many plays. They haven't been able to sustain drives, and I guess it's a chicken and egg situation because, they haven't been able to sustain drives because they haven't been able to run the football, and why aren't they doing this jumbo package thing if they can run the football? And I would say now, moving forward, because they have experience and they've installed it, you have to remember they don't have very much time to install stuff in a week. They do their scouting, they do their self-scouting, they put together the game plan, they implement the game plan, they have their install day, and then you're pretty much go. It's not like you have, unless it's a bye week like now, it's not like you have all this time to come up with game plan and install multiple things. Like, what they go with is what they go with. And so now that they have installed it and they've implemented it and it's worked, now this is something that I would expect to see more going forward. Some of the, I think, Alfredo Roberts and some of the other position coaches, Pat Meyer, talked about how this is now an option moving forward. They're not sure how much it's going to be used. It's going to be a matchup, game-by-game basis. So, yeah, I would expect, to see this more going forward. But also, do you really want to see Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith get a combined 30 snaps in a game? Probably not. So it's going to be week to week. You might see this again a couple times throughout the year. And other weeks you won't. So I hope that answers your question, Joe. I think it's a fair question for sure. Once again, 412-254-3145 is how you can get a question answered. Call or text. Just tell us your name, where you're from, and a brief question, and we will answer on a future episode. I think that is all for today. Enjoy this weekend of stress-free football with no Steelers heart attack to worry about. Hopefully the Steelers, they could be looking at, I don't want to say lock down the division, but it could be looking quite good for them after this weekend if all goes according to plan. The Ravens not looking great with Lamar Jackson and all their defense all banged up. The Bengals obviously have looked horrible with Joe Burrow. They already lost on, who did the Bengals just play?
Just played the Broncos.
Yeah, that game was ugly. And then the Browns are the Browns, so I don't think we have to worry about them either. So enjoy this weekend of football. I am Ross. That is Joe, and we will catch you guys next week.